It's the weekend, so I'm not going to be too heavy. Something I'd like to draw your attention to is a young man who is an amazing freedom fighter. I think that's what we call ourselves, isn't it? Called Montgomery Toms. This just amazed me because I've started sharing his stuff. He's courageous, he's well-spoken, he's a good orator, and he's prepared to get out there. He's gone to migrant hotels, he's done all sorts of actual campaigning on the ground, he's been on the tube. The amazing thing is, his maturity is so good, and the reason I like to support these young people is they can carry the fight forward for an old bird like me. I'm shocked because he's in a WhatsApp group I'm in with other people like Bev Turner and different ones, and he's put a tweet in there to share, and he's only 20. I'm going to play you this short video to tell you why I think people like this is important. Do you remember when Des O'Connor always used to have new comedians on his show to give them a leg up? Well, I like to do this.
My name is Montgomery Toms.
Hang on.
And
I'll start again. I didn't have volume. What bloody rubbish.
My name is Montgomery Toms, and when I was 14, COVID hit. But today, I turned 20 years old. I finally moved out of my teens, but it's kind of bizarre to me because I've been in my teens all through this journey with so many people pulling together and giving me so much love and credit for the work that I've been doing over the past 4 years specifically, in terms of my campaigns for freedom, in terms of fighting back against authoritarianism. I want to thank everyone so much. I'm not one for birthdays, but I wanted to put a message out which actually gives credit to the people that have put support my way. It's been an incredible few years, but I am seriously on a mission to transform the landscape of this country and bring in freedom, the true essence of freedom. I don't believe we currently have that. I don't believe there's any politician that's offering that, and I don't believe it's mainstream politics that is going to make that change. It's the people that are going to make that change. When I first started out on social media and putting my message out there, I could have never have expected the level of support and engagement I got, but nevertheless, it has come my way and I am so grateful for it. I've worked so hard, and I do believe my efforts have paid off, and even on my birthday I'm continuing to work in some respect and fight back against the evil, tyrannical globalists and authoritarian morons who have been trying to destroy our country and destroy the West. So God bless. Thank you once again for your support, if I haven't said that already. And if you do want to support me any further,
So you can get him on Twitter, and I don't know if he's on Facebook. I see him on Twitter and in WhatsApp. But isn't that what we need? Folk like that, young men like that are prepared to say something, do something, and get out there. He does all sorts live, do you know what I mean? And what got me was when he said he was 14 when lockdown hit. And then I thought to myself, oh my God, it really has been that long, hasn't it? It's been since 2020, and we're in 2025, partway through, nearly halfway through. Time is marching on, and we've had it robbed from us in the most horrendous way that should never have happened. Point number 2. As you know, I'm a Brexiteer. It comes as no surprise. And I put a story on my Facebook page and this is YouTube. What's it called? Twitter. Because people can't understand why someone like me with a house in Austria voted to leave. Because it wasn't about what I got for my personal needs. I knew it would affect that. I was prepared to put up with it. What I didn't want was to think that my country was going to be sunk under a form of communism. Now, the thing is, even Gorbachev said that the EU was set up under a style of the former USSR. He said it, you can Google it. If he can see it, why can't other people see it? The window dressing was good, don't get me wrong. Easy travel, pet passport, EHICS card for reciprocal health. What's not to love? Well, what's not to love is that's just like the Pied Piper to get you in. And once you're in, once you get there, you can't get out. Unless you vote like we did. We're the only country that's done it. They're making us paid, they're making it difficult. We've got politicians who cave into it all. We've had no one who's serviced Brexit properly. Obviously, people like Nigel Farage haven't been in a position to. They've had no power. And then we've had all these rules and regulations that Starmer's now funneling everything from the military to even the way our kids are going to be educated. I'm going to read you something out that I wasn't aware of until today. I'll read out what someone else has put. EU students are to be allowed back into the UK at taxpayer discounts, whilst British kids drown under debt. So they've written in example terms. Starmer says this is fairness and taking back control. He's giving it away and surrendering Britain. We call it betrayal. Callum, for instance, from Carlisle, does night shifts to pay his student fees. Asia, from Stoke-on-Trent, juggles 2 jobs to stay afloat. Meanwhile, Felix from Frankfurt gets discounted degree schemes, taxpayer bursary and fast-tracked to a residency. All funded by the taxpayer. We didn't vote for that, we voted for Brexit, and we've become second-class citizens in our own country. Then you have to add that to what's going on the 19th, which is where he hands over our military, which should scare us to death. My friend Catherine McBride, the economist, sent this in our WhatsApp group. It's been written by Briefings for Britain, and most of the writers work for free to enlighten us. And here we have Dan Boucher actually. And here's a section of what he says about what's happening with our military. In the proposals involved that Starmer's signing this treaty, I think it's on Monday the 19th, it's becoming part of the European Defence Fund, or PESCO as you've heard it, which is the Permanent Structured Cooperation, and or the European Defence Agency. They will mean embracing a high degree of defence integration that is tightly defined and regulated by EU law. This would necessarily impact UK freedom in relation to both foreign and defence policy. Given that the UK voted to leave, it would plainly be completely disingenuous to pretend that it is appropriate to now become part of what is the defence dimensions of their ever closer union. The project we voted for was to leave. This would be particularly the case for the government, with the smallest share of the vote in modern times, approaching just half of the Brexit vote, nearly 2 million less than the minority Labour government in February 74. They've got such a small majority. Share of the vote, they've got a big majority in the turnout, but not many people turned out. So who's really voting for this? This isn't for the country. This is a small nucleus of people who have got their hands on power, who shouldn't be there. He goes on. Brexit was nearly 2 million less than the minority Labour government from February 74, to instead of seeking a cooperation with the EU member states to draw us into the EU defence integration. The key point that the UK made repeatedly as an EU member state whenever defence integration was raised, and why we gained a reputation for seeking to limit development of an EU defence role, was that our defence interests were upheld in and through NATO. There was and should remain a very real concern about involving countries that are for the most part already in NATO, in an alternative defence alliance that would inevitably address many of the same presenting difficulties as NATO. This would seem to be a dangerous recipe for duplication and inefficiency, tension and confusion. Not surprisingly, our concerns were shared by some other member states. However, the EU wanted to proceed in defence integration, and so it was sought, and to address the difficulty through following the treaty provision. That sounds like we shouldn't be in it. That sounds like it's the wrong thing to do. When it says duplication, remember that will mean duplication on spending. So we'll be spending whatever we have to spend to be in NATO, and then spending again to be in this poxy setup that we voted to leave. We don't need to be in any defence pact with the European Union. We can stand alone. We have Trident. We are better siding with America. We are better just being in NATO. But this man, as well as giving away free tuition to foreign students, yet again, he's drawing us so closely back to the EU, we might as well not have left. So for a Brexiteer, that just goes against the grain. I gave up a lot to vote for my country. I gave up a house abroad in the Alps. I could have kept it because I could still go there, obviously, but the regime that would be under having left from Brexit wouldn't really be suitable for how I used to use it. So this annoys me. And don't get me wrong, the reason it annoys me is, for instance, the country I chose was Austria, which is beautiful, clean, no graffiti. Kids still go out with their parents at the weekend. Nobody had a burglar alarm in our village. It was beautiful. Mountains, beautiful, crisp, bright blue lakes. Really good healthcare. If you went to the hospital, it was mint ball clean. They'd never heard of a hospital infection. They didn't know what I was on about. When I talked to a nurse, in fact, what are you talking about? You go to hospital for the wellness, not for the infection. You go visit infection, you go to hospital, Krankenhaus, and we make it good, all better, and then you go home. I said, no, that's not what happens in England. What happens in England, you go to hospital with what's wrong with you, and then you end up staying in longer because you catch something while you're in. She thought it was awful, the thought of actually catching a hospital disease while you're in hospital. She couldn't believe it. The sanitary conditions are so much better, and the staff mainly are Austrians and some Turkish who have lived there for donkey's years. But what I'm getting at here, with the way I see our country, and people say, well, why did you buy a house in Austria if you hate the EU? I love Europe, but I don't like the politics of the EU. They're completely different things. To love Europe is a geographical liking. People love Spain and Italy and France. That's because you like the country. That's not because you want to be ruled politically. It's got nothing to do with politics. And as Maggie Thatcher explained, it got more and more intrusive. It was supposed to be a trading bloc. And then it was mission creep control, and we've pulled away from it. But sadly, we've got a political uniparty that hasn't instigated Brexit in time and hasn't done it properly. So it's Brino, and then you've got the Lib Dems, you've got Labour, you've got the SNP, you've got the Greens, you've got other cranks that want to be back in. Why would you want two layers of government? Look how much Westminster costs. Why do we have to pay for another layer of government to tell us how to live? Well, we're doing okay on our own. We need less government. I'm a Ronald Reagan fan. We need less government. The government frightens me. I don't see things from the government that make me think, oh, I feel really reassured. The government's helping. Do you? I don't. So I'm bringing awareness all the time, because the thing is, Starmer is giving us away bit by bit, and through these NGOs, non-government organisations, quangos, it stinks. It's everything that Tony Blair set up. And if you can get a party, and we all know who I support, so let's not hide behind any rocks. I don't do it blindly. I'm not a fan. I'm not a shill. I see what could work and I stick with it. And people have said on Twitter, oh, June used to love Boris, and then she loved the Tories. No, it's nothing to do with love. Who uses that phrase for a politician? It's to do with what will work. I look at politicians like I would look at my investments. I look at where I've put them and are they going to make money? And if they're not going to make money, if something's going wrong, I move my investment. And that's what I do with politics. In 2019, I was quite visceral about the condemnation of the Reform Party because I couldn't see any point in them being there. There was no election coming up. They were a toothless tiger like the rest of the small parties. Now, things have changed, and what's changed is Nigel came back. It's that simple. And Nigel came back, and those 5 MPs got a seat. And when there was the first by-election, he's got another seat. All right, one's pulled away because he's having difficulty. That's up to him. That's got nothing to do with what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is how can I help to engineer something that's better for me, better for my country. Because if my country does well, I'll do well. So will you. It's that simple. So we need people who are prepared to do that. And what I see with Reform is the tenacity, the foresight to have put all this work in for these council elections. No one else has put that in play. The other 2 people that are banging on about Reform not being right and Nigel not being fit to lead, I just think they're bonkers. I think, and what have you got on offer? What are your councillors? What have you been doing? Apart from going on telly and telling us about how dissatisfied you are, what have you got? What is there? There isn't anything. So that's why I changed. I supported Boris till he let me down. That's what you should do with politics. You don't blindly keep following some bloody idiot, do you, when they've let you down? I mean, all right. I do think that sometimes people get emotional about politicians and they use phrases like, oh, he's a hero, save us. No, they're not coming to save you. You're going to save yourself. You're going to save yourself by following a strategy. Make your mind up what you want to follow. For me, it'll never be the Tories. They're done. If you want to prove to me that you're Conservative, dump the badge, cross the floor, go to a party that is, do an Andrea Jenkins, do a Darren Grimes, get among it, show us you mean business. Don't come marching down the bloody street doing videos about immigration because you know that's the hot topic, in the hopes that we'll vote for you again and then you can just send everything back to normal. No, sod off with that. I'm not having it. It doesn't wash. But this is only me talking. This is what I want from my politics and why I work to support what I think will come to fruition. I'm not hoping for massive changes. I was actually quite happy with the establishment when it was like Margaret Thatcher. I could have rumbled along with that quite nicely. I wasn't unhappy through the 90s because I didn't know what was bloody going on, because I didn't follow it. And we've got to make allowances for a lot of people who are in that position now. They don't follow it, they don't know what's going on. But that's where you're so valuable, because you do. And you can stand there with your next door neighbour or on a dog walk or sat in the pub or queuing up in Marks and Spencer's, if you can still bloody afford Marks and Spencer's. And you can have ambiguous conversations about things and give them the benefit of the insight that you've got. These one-to-one conversations are absolutely invaluable. Like that young man, Montgomery Toms. He can carry this forward like Ethan Thorburn can carry it forward and Joseph Robertson can carry it forward. These are young men who are trying their best to get into politics for the right reasons. And what we need is more of that, because people like me are going to get too old to do this eventually, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? And what we want is we want someone who can keep carrying it forward. And I do honestly think there's only one game in town right now. A friend of mine, a former Tory, she left, went to a meeting the other night in a pub. And it was with other Tories who were still members of the party to talk politics about what to do moving forward. So she was invited because they were hoping she'd come back in. And she said, what disappointed her? Nobody came up with any ideas. Nobody had anything new to say. There was no revelation. They're all sat round, about 9 of them in this pub. Fairly intelligent Tories. And all they could talk about was what to do about Nigel Farage. What to do about him. Literally, as bad as looking forward to something happening to him. Not looking forward to it, that's wrong. But, something might happen to him before the election. That's membership. That's at membership level, that. What sort of thinking's that? I've been in business since I was 24. I've had a number of different businesses, never owed anybody a penny, and I never allowed anyone to owe me any either. And I have never sold my product or service on the back of bad-mouthing the competition. I didn't need to. My product was good, my services were spot on. I had a driving school, I had the best pass rate in the town, I had clean cars, I smelled clean, I didn't have beer on, I weren't chain smoking with my arm wrapped bloody punters, like these middle-aged blokes do sometimes. But what I'm saying is, I have never sold my product or service on the back of criticising the competition. I know you have to a bit with politics, I know they all backbite each other. But when you've got a party as old and established as the Tory party, and they still have nothing to offer you, they can't come up with anything that's going to say, well, we can do this, that's going to make you think twice. That's a concern to me, and that's why I stick with what I see. Because to me, following politics and supporting any particular party or person is an investment of my time and effort. It's an investment. So I want to make sure that my investment works for me. And if it works for me, it works for you too. Because you think like me, we're the same side of the fence. So that's all it is. And I just kind of share these things in the hopes that somebody gets some benefit from it. Rather than just sitting there thinking you're on your own, you're not. And the big thing is, everything in your life that you put there was not put there by any politician, was put there by you and your efforts. The stuff you like and love was put there by you. You did that, not them. And if you want to hold on to it, you have to follow them and see what they've got on offer as a government for a country that you're living in. So don't forget to click subscribe. I'm getting quite slick at this. Don't forget to click subscribe, and then you can see the videos. You can watch them anytime. They're not time sensitive. And let's keep this momentum going.